Hi folks. In this video I'm going to show you how to apply one of the most useful skills that you're going to learn in physics class, and that is how to graph your data using graphical software. Really, the industry standard for this is Microsoft Excel, but that's not available to us at Beverly High School. If you do have it, I would highly recommend that you use that for your graphing. But I'm going to show you how to do this in Google Sheets because that's a software that's available to everyone. So the first thing that you need to do is open up a new Google Sheets document. So you're going to do that by going to your drive and then opening up a new Google Sheet, which looks like this. And the very first thing that you should do before you start putting in any data and graphing is rename the sheet so that it's something that you can easily find later. And I would recommend using your initials and then something that titles the work for what it is, if it's a lab, for example, or a homework. And I'm going to be using the data from the homework 1, 2 in this unit as an example. Okay, so you've named your file, and I would also recommend putting some kind of title in the top left-hand cell. So I'm also going to put this title homework 1, 2 up in the upper left-hand cell, just as a reminder when you open this document that that's what you're looking at. So you're now ready to start adding your data. At the top of each column of data, you should always add a title. And since I'm using the data from the homework graphing practice, this is the data that I'm going to be putting in for this first set of data. So that's volume and pressure data. Always put a header at the top of your column. So the first column is volume, and then include units. And this is meters cubed. The reason that you do this is that once it graphs the data, it's going to use these headers for the axis labels. So we have volume and pressure, and that's in pascals. And then you start putting in your numbers. Okay, so I have all my data with the headers with the correct units labeled. The next thing that I'm going to do is select that data and then insert a chart. And for some reason, it automatically always puts the chart on top of your data. So I would move it and resize it so that I can see it as I make edits to it. And so you'll notice that when it first created the chart, it opened something called Chart Editor, and I closed that, but now I want to go back and open it again so that I can make some changes to this graph. And so again, notice that it's automatically labeled the axes, and it also assumes that the first column is your independent data, and it automatically puts that on the x-axis. But I don't want my chart to look exactly like this. So I'm going to go back and open up the chart editor. And under setup, I'm going to choose the chart type. I don't want a line chart. What almost always you're going to choose is something called a scatter chart. And you can see now something of a trend in the data. It's clearly not linear. And you might recognize that that's an inverse relationship, and you also might remember from chemistry that volume and pressure of a gas, for example, are inversely related. So, so the next thing that you want to do is actually add something called a trend line to your data. If it looks about right, if the axes look good and the labels are right and it's a title that you're happy with, then the next thing that you're going to do is add a best fit line or curve through the data. It's not a line, obviously, it's a curve right now. If it were linear, then the line that you were going to fit to it would be called a best fit line. And the way you add a trend line is under Series, drop-down menu, scroll down a little bit until you see Trend Line, and then click Trend Line, and it'll automatically choose a line, and that's clearly not a good fit to the data. So under Type, there are a bunch of options. Linear doesn't look right. Exponential, not so much. Is it a polynomial? That doesn't look like a good fit either. Logarithmic. And actually, the power series is your best bet for this data. This is a power series with the exponent -1. So in other words, it's an inverse relationship. And that looks like a pretty good fit to your data. And the last thing that you want to do then is choose under, oopsie, not under legend, back under trend line, scroll down a little bit more, and under label you want it to use the equation. So now it's telling me that pressure is equal to 4 times the x-axis, which is volume, to the -1. In other words, pressure is equal to 4 over volume. And so in this case, the data is not linear. The next step that you're going to do is linearize it and then graph it again so that you can come up with an equation for a line in the form y = mx plus b. And we'll be going over in class exactly how you do that.